Slater, brilliant.
Held up for tackle.
Brilliant. Guard down, no knock on. Fiddler doesn't score.
Alrighty, boys. The massive Project Apollo, with it's probably easily the best name of anything the NRL has ever done. They've done
phenomenal.
it. Absolutely phenomenal. Not cringy whatsoever.
It's
They've
hip
done it.
and cool.
It's hip, it's cool, it's now, and wow, the footy is coming back on May 28th, confirmed, which is 7 weeks away after this little down period that we've had with the virus and everything. Are we keen or what?
No.
Silence. Absolute silence. Absolute madman. And down period is such a light term for it, considering we just missed out on like a ton of rounds of football and more to come. But I mean, it's always nice to have a silver lining towards the end of the season.
Me personally, I was just ready for the cricket season. So
Get off this podcast. Get out of here.
After Roosters dropping the first 2 games, I've called it quits. So
I'm into Cricket Australia headlines.
Yeah, were both of you boys keen for them to just reset the season and just start from scratch? I mean, I wasn't, obviously, with Parramatta 2-0. But, I mean, did you guys want them to just start again? Or
No, I didn't. I just keep it how it is. Like, so we do win 3 in a row. Nobody can complain.
100% yes, restart the season, and not just because the Sharks aren't doing phenomenally. I promise, you can trust me.
We'll get into that pretty in depth later, because we had a little bit of a chat about it in our Facebook group the other night, but we thought, we'll save the proper chat for the podcast, which we are back to doing after obviously having a few weeks off. I mean, we could have done a show every week for, this whole down period, I suppose, but we thought there's not much footy going on. There's not a heap to talk about that isn't all just speculation, but we've come back today because there is some actual proper news to talk about. There's a fair bit going on. So, you'll get some episodes here and there until the season final kicks off again on May 28th. And, guys, it's a 15-round season. Obviously, 13 games remaining. Hang on, what else have they announced? Yeah, I've got it all written here.
Everyone wears dresses now. Also,
everyone wears dresses now. It's the same old competition structure, but each team is only playing the other teams one time, rather than playing some teams twice. So obviously we still get that shorter competition. Grand final day is the same day as it always was as well. And the NRL is working with governments for travel and training plans. So it seems like they're not going to put them in a bubble like they've been talking about,
right.
Everyone living on the same campus and stuff like that. I think they're planning to do it kind of business as usual by May 21. I think the government is kind of indicating to them that they might be able to do that by then.
That's really surprising, because realistically, if one of those players contracts this virus, then isn't it just a chain reaction for everyone to catch it, I guess? Not that I would want it, but the kind of bubble society, to me, made the most sense.
Yeah, well, are they underplaying it? I personally think they need to go away, because as soon as one team gets it, it's all she wrote. So, and how the Warriors going to go about it? Are they going to go to and from New Zealand, or?
Yeah, are they? Do we know who's in the comp yet, or are they pulled out?
They've said it's as usual. If there's 13 games remaining with 2 already played, then that means they'd have to be. Otherwise, there'd be a spare game in there.
It'd be a 12. It'd only be
using
12
math. 15 minus the 2 from the already played equals
13.
13.
So they're obviously involved. They're involved somehow, and I think the RLPA, so the Players Association, have been talking with the players, and I don't think any of them are keen for the bubble idea. They've obviously gotten that through the NRL, so they're trying to work around it. Because they do want to spend time with their families and stuff like that. Obviously, I personally, if I were them, probably wouldn't want to be stuck on one place for that amount of time either without my family or anything like that too. So.
Well, that absolutely deflates one of my main arguments for a point we're going to bring up later, but that's cool.
Well, they haven't said that it...
won't be.
I think they did say that it won't be. Hang on, I'm going to have to get the fucking article again. I don't think they've said that it's been completely written off if they have to, but at this stage, that isn't the way it is.
Nah, Cameron Smith came out and said that he didn't want to do it, so that means they're not doing it. That's what she wrote.
What Cameron Smith say? Cameron Smith get
Is the real NRL CEO.
Smith smash.
Smith smash.
Yeah.
Is it weird that actually when I think about Cameron Smith, I vaguely think of an NRL official? Not to take away from how good he is as a player, but in my mind,
He's got the physique of one.
slightly as one. Yeah, it's like the mannerisms and everything. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just a good accolade of a great player.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting no matter what they do with this. But at the end of the day, we're going to be getting football back, and be it the fact that they are underplaying this situation or they're not, this is going ahead and it's 100% set. So it's going to have to be a wait and see to get those finer details, I think.
They were a little bit vague, obviously, with what it is that they're sorting out with the governments. Apparently, they were saying that they're working on very meticulous kind of testing regimes and making sure that they're doing it to a certain guideline that different state governments have provided them. But yeah, they never went into any detail on how in-depth that is or what it entails. I reckon that's probably because, like, obviously, with how the virus has been going the last couple of weeks, the rules of what we can and can't do just as a society are changing almost on a daily basis. So I guess you kind of can't really set anything in stone, can you?
No.
Yeah. So I guess that's why they're kind of vague with it. But good old Project Apollo, boys. What a name. How do you think they came up with that?
No, they probably watched Apollo 13.
Some boy could watch that the night before because he's been cooped up at home and said, what about Project Apollo? As Sam said,
Apollo
the N in
sounds
NRL stands for NASA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How did we forget that, boys?
NASA Rugby League. It's just rugby league, but in space. The future is now. We're going to send everyone to the moon to play the rest of the season.
That's actually what they're going to do.
Catches the virus. Holy shit, we've unlocked the secrets.
We're going to play floaty footy.
Because you know how when you go to Parramatta, you feel like you're on the moon, right? They're about the equivalent.
You kick the ball off kickoff, it just floats into space because there's not enough gravity to bring it back down.
They haven't built any facilities. They've just marked out like chalk or use some sticks to line it out. Yes, good idea is very good.
Knowing the care they put in, they've probably gone like drawn a line straight over Neil Armstrong's footprint that's still up there. And
This is foolproof. Oh man!
But yeah, so those are pretty much all the new details that the NRL came out with today about the competition. But Ben, you were saying last night that you had a really cool idea in quotation marks for the competition that you haven't actually told us about.
I was too.
Yeah, so what's your idea for the comp, mate?
Okay, so this was prior to this news actually coming out and being official, I guess, on the books for everyone.
It doesn't just make it redundant, does it?
No. This is just an alternative idea of what they could have done for this season. So initially the whole idea was that it was going to be a bubble society like we've talked about. And so that was always going to be causing issues for players and things of the such. And we'll probably go into it a little bit later about our thoughts on how the season should be kind of managed. But for a way, for me, because I'm just going to come out and say it, I don't think it should be kind of kept the same and it should be kept in the same vein as previous seasons. But as an alternative to that, my thought was to come out and find the players that were happy to play, maybe through a subsidy for those who are happy to leave their family and join this bubble society, to turn it into a sort of draft pick idea where there's going to be, I don't know how you would choose captains, but essentially what you would do is you'd have a draft day and you'd have 4, 6, however many players depending, however many coaches and captains, depending on how many players wanted to be part of this. But you'd essentially draft a team and you'd go through and you'd have to pick out players based on, I guess, that coach's or maybe even better, that captain's preferences. So it could make for a really, really interesting season to see these players all kind of play together in what is, I guess, an obsolete year, but it still would be extremely entertaining in my eyes, I think.
The Coronavirus Draft League.
Yes. The CDL.
I don't mind that. I mean, who's going to pay him is the only problem.
So it would be business as usual, essentially. But for those who actually played, because they have had to take pay cuts, those who actually played would probably get a small amount of their pay cut reduced, I guess, as an incentive to do this. because like I said, before this all kind of came out, what they are doing, it was going to be a bubble society, and there's a lot of negative impacts it would have on players. And for me, I think that still, I guess to an extent, the season is going to be marred to an extent. So I think to make the season something that just aims for entertainment value would definitely be something that is a positive goal to work towards. But as an idea, that would be cool, I think.
I think that would be really entertaining, but I suppose like I couldn't see the clubs being up to it, because it'd be like, obviously, for example, Parramatta is paying Mitchell Moses a certain amount of money to play for them. He gets drafted to another side and possibly gets injured. What if you got like a year-long injury or something like that? Parramatta have just played him to, play for another team for part of the season and get an injury. They're without him. But
these other teams,
entertaining.
The other teams wouldn't necessarily be the Parramatta Eels or the Sharks. They would be like a different entity to an extent.
Gotcha,
yeah, so it wouldn't be just like, hey, Eels captain is Mitchell Moses, so he picks a new Eels team. Like, you can choose from anyone to create essentially a different team. Obviously, the clubs would have to agree to it. But at the end of the day, realistically, there's just as big a chance of an injury happening in that draft league as there is in normal season. Like, they've just confirmed coming out.
Yeah, but I suppose at least that way they were playing for their proper teams, going for, I suppose, quote-unquote points. Because like you said, I'm with you, like, this season is kind of marred. I think there will always be an asterisk next to it. It's not a full-length season. It's debatable if the effort that goes into this year is different. So,
I guess that leads into the next point.
I reckon it's a credit to whoever wins this year. Because of all the turmoil that's going, you're able to persevere and stuff. We're really going to see who's the strong teams and who's not the strong teams, who's been training over this little break and who hasn't been. So if a team's able to come forward and win this, and credit to them. I mean, I reckon it proves more than what it doesn't. So
I don't know. At least in my opinion, it doesn't show that a team can hold form over 25 rounds rather than just 15. I feel like it, like Ben said in our chat last night, it does take away from the teams that have won a full premiership.
Those who have had to
give
work
someone the same award for. Yeah, exactly. To give the same premiership to a team that's had to do almost half as much work. At least, in terms of game time, at least.
Yeah, like 100%. Like, when you look at a team throughout the year, it's enjoyable to watch how they like adapt and they change throughout the year to match different play styles or their strengths or their weaknesses, how injuries come into play over 25 rounds, how versing a team for a second time never really, unless it's a vast kind of difference in strengths for the current year, is never really the same. And I think especially, like, before they said that they weren't going to be turning into a bubble society, I think that there's no way that the players would kind of be playing up to the same standard that they would in a normal season where the main influences aren't kind of based around isolation and things of the such, and there's no marring of there's no, I guess, animosity between maybe coaches or clubs, how their wages have been slashed, because I don't think they're brought out yet whether or not the wages will be the same if they play the season. Do we know?
They haven't said, no. I imagine they'll be cut because they're playing less games, but yeah.
So I don't think there's much difference from what it used to be in the past. Like, it was only, correct me if I'm wrong, was it only like a bit over 20 rounds back in the day, like in the 90s and stuff, before it went to the NRL? It was the ARL. They weren't playing a full 25, 26 round season, so...
Yeah, but there were less teams in the league as well.
Yeah, that's true, but like, I mean, they only can do what they can do, and it's not like they moved the goalposts for one team and not the other. Everybody's had to do this. So
no, but it's
not. You can't compare it to the teams past, but you can compare it to the 2020 Sharks are the same as the 2020 Parramatta Eels. Who's better out of the two? So we're still going to be able to do that. So.
It's sort of that, but it's also like they may not have changed the goalpost. They may not have like moved the goalposts, but they have shaped it now so the goalposts are a big circle that is 10 meters off the ground. Like, it's a different kind of season now.
Yeah, exactly. You can't call it a premiership when what it took to win a premiership last year is totally different to this year, if that makes sense. I think they've really missed an opportunity to just try something different this year. Like, obviously, I don't know if you boys read it, but there was a lot of talk, especially pushed by Wayne Bennett, to trial a conference system this year. So scrap the last two rounds, try something new like a conference system. So Queensland and New Zealand are in their own, or the like New South Wales teams are in their own, and then the grand final is the champion of the two kind of thing. And then maybe give them a different award for that because it's a different season. So I don't know, like a special medal or a different trophy or something. Don't call it an NRL premiership, but you've won a different kind of competition.
Insane.
Because it is a different kind of season.
Yeah.
In saying that though, like, is it really fair? Because thinking of that conference that isn't the Sydney teams, North Queensland travelling to New Zealand, or North Queensland travelling to Storm, as opposed to Canterbury travelling to, Cronulla. It's not really. That wouldn't be. And they're having to get on a plane, 3-4 hours each week, one way to play a game of football, whereas somebody's just got to get in a bus. I don't think that's very fair compared to the other alternative.
Probably makes it really hard to find neutral grounds for finals and things of the sort too. Like, if you're playing in the New South Wales climate for the entire season and then you go up to Queensland, that will genuinely take a pretty big toll on a lot of players.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not saying it had to be the conference idea, but trialing something different, I suppose, would have,
I think there's definitely room for it, but I guess going against what I've been saying, it is kind of hard when you have a fan base like we do in NRL at the moment. They kind of know what they like, and they like what they know. So does making too many changes, like kind of have been happening over the last few years, push people away from the game? Or do you think because it's one of the only sports going at the moment, it would make people more accepting of these changes simply because they're forced to kind of watch this?
I think they'd be more accepting of the changes because they're forced to watch it, and just with the nature of missing so many rounds, it's different anyway.
Yeah. Me personally, I don't have a problem. I'm just happy to see football back on the TV. But
for sure, like 100% speculation and things of the sort.
Like if anybody has a problem with it, well, they weren't worth keeping anyway. So. I mean, I commend the NRL for doing what they're doing. They're trying their best to put some sort of product on the TV, and they do say like it's for the good of the game, but like really everybody knows it's for the money. But I don't really care. I don't care if they're after money, because at the end of the day,
they need the money.
That's right.
No money, no game.
That's right. So come out and say we need this because we need money, and we're going to put together a 15-round season. I guess in its own way, it's going to be entertaining because it is going to be more of a sprint rather than a marathon. So if somebody can prevail, they're going to have to put 10 good, really, really, really good games together, and then maybe drop a couple, and then. But those teams that don't have a good start are really going to struggle. So it's a different beast than what it is in years gone by, but.
Yeah, no, 100%. But on that note, like, because it's a different beast, I feel like, especially if Parramatta were to win it this year, when obviously, like, they haven't won one since '86. If this were the first one that we get, and they call it the NRL, like, they say that it was a proper premiership one, an NRL premiership, I'd feel kind of cheap on it. I don't think I'd feel dirty, but I wouldn't be nearly as keen as if it was like a proper season. Like, it doesn't mean as much. So, yeah, that's why I'm big on them just making it something different entirely just for the year.
Yeah, well, like, and kind of going back to the whole sprint situation, like, it takes out that first half versus later half of the season argument. Like, go back to 2018, the year that the Warriors and St. George, they swept the season out for the first half of the year. They were looking like they were absolutely fire the whole time. And then coming to the second half of the year, they dropped right off. Warriors only just made the 8, I think. And St. George's form dipped quite a bit. They still had a pretty good for and against from the start of the season. But, like, there's so many things that change over that time, from first to second half of the season, with a conjuncture of Origin period really being a pivotal point for a lot of teams. I just think that there's too many things that changed to really be able to match it up against previous seasons.
I think NRL will still be affected by the state of Origin this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're looking at putting the Origin the same sort of time period in retrospect to what it would be if it was a normal season. So they're going to plonk it in the middle somewhere. So teams will still, I guess, have to go about their business, putting up with losing players and whatnot. So that will still be a factor, but it'll be more more prevalent because one game means more than what it did last season. So
Yeah, okay, all right.
I hadn't heard that.
What's,
like anything about Origin. Yeah.
Going off that, though, it brings up a completely different argument. Should Origin count this year as well? Like, there is
Yeah.
no way, again.
Definitely
talking about
Origin
the
should
same
count.
point. You think it
'Cause
should
it's
count?
Yeah, well, it's only going to be a 3-game season, like it was.
I think so, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no different. I guess the class of players you're going to pick. If anything, it should matter more because there's going to be less risk of injuries because there's going to be less games. It's going to be more fresh. So you should be able to provide the best team for your state.
Yes.
Exactly. Like the nature of Origin doesn't change with this at all. It's always been a 3-game series.
believe-
You don't have to change it from being a 3-game series. The only thing that's different is the period of time that players might make themselves like eligible to be picked and prove themselves if they want a spot. That's the only thing that changes.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagree. Like, realistically, normally you would have 12 rounds or 15 rounds, whatever it is, to be chosen, right? You have a pretty big period to choose that you're the best person for your state in this position, correct? You then come into this game where you're either playing in New South Wales or Queensland. The atmosphere in itself is enough to change the whole outcome of game. Like, obviously talking kind of out your ass when you're saying that at the same time that it changed the nature, but it does. Like, having players around, having fans around you and knowing you're playing for your state in front of a home stadium, that's almost the essence of what Origin is playing in front of your state fans for the ultimate, I guess, trophy, which you could nearly argue is just as important as a grand final trophy at the end of the day. Especially in a time where it's kind of up in the air which team is dominant. There's not really, it could be a time that it's fading away from that Queensland dominated period. I think playing all the games behind closed doors in New South Wales off a team that you've picked from 9 rounds, it just doesn't have, I guess in the dumbest and most layman terms, doesn't have the magic that Origin definitely has, I think, for me and a lot of other fans.
Oh, I agree, absolutely. Like, it has to be played in front of fans, but we don't know that it has to be behind closed doors if it's in the middle of the year, do we?
Yeah, well, these are going for another 3 to 6 months, these restrictions.
Yeah, well, I suppose, me being selfish, I would rather go and say, well, I do want to go watch Origin this year, so I hope it is at the end of the year. I don't know,
I would assume they just move it. If they can't do it in July, then...
But they're not going to put it near the final series, because that...
They put it after.
and players would switch off as soon as the grand... because if you have it after the final series, players who didn't make the finals but are part of the Origin teams are going to be 6 to 7 weeks without a game.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do that either.
Plus, this is the time for players to usually wind down, and if things are winding down with this virus too, they're going to want to start to do things with their family and get out and start to live life as per normal.
Well, I suppose what they might have had the opportunity to do, though, an idea that's just popped into my head now is if they did go the conference system, have halfway through the season or end of the season, maybe whatever, as State of Origin being the best 17 from the North Conference and the best 17 from the South Conference, however you did it, and maybe make that your Origin series. You'd see a lot more players that you might not usually see Origin. It'd be a really interesting exhibition game. Because you get a lot of people who might represent other nations, like the island nations, New Zealand, stuff like that, all playing against each other. It'd be kind of like an NBA All-Stars game.
Yeah, but
That'd be another interesting thing they could have trialed this year too, instead of having a 3-game Origin series that would be different to years previous.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to watch. I just don't see the NRL would be up for something different. Origin makes them so much
especially,
money, so.
they wouldn't change what Origin is. They wouldn't change the players. They wouldn't change it even just to have the label on there, I don't think.
But
Not even just for a one-off thing, though.
I don't think
Not
so.
make it that
I think that would
permanent.
outrage a lot of fans if it wasn't state versus state.
that'd be cool for the end of the year. If they, or at the start of the year, they could have their Indigenous All-Stars game, but then as well they could have Sydney team, All-Stars team, and then, out of state All-Stars team. That would be pretty cool.
Bring back city versus country. Fuck it.
Yeah. Or even with that, because it was always hard for the city boys to get passionate about it. Why don't they have Queensland country versus, New South Wales country? That'd be pretty cool.
Things like that.
Yeah, but if they did shorten the season, which they look like they're definitely going to, and Origin is plonked in the middle of that, it definitely helps New South Wales out because we're pretty much. I don't think we're going to make many changes. The halves would change, but you would think that'd be Cleary and Moses, and the rest of it would stay the same. So I think that it'd hinder Queensland because I really don't. I think they got a lot of question marks around that pack.
Yeah.
So
also, then on top of it though, if they're having this implemented travel thing, I guess Queensland teams are instantly at a slight disadvantage because they've got to fly down. Like,
are they talking exemptions?
Things.
Are they talking exemptions for the NRL
Apparently,
and rugby league teams?
That's what they're trying to work out so that players can travel to the games.
Because I don't agree.
Neither do
that
I.
they get exemptions if they're allowed to go back to their families and stuff.
No,
that poses a risk to the community. So if they're in their own little isolation bubbles, yeah, fair. You can go interstate across countries and stuff. But if you're living life like everybody else when you're not playing football, then why are you able to cross the borders?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about, where the NRL is kind of being blasé about this and they're underplaying it. I think that they're trying to act as though it's not as, I guess, not that it's bad or serious, not as important to implement these like distancing rules that we have at the moment.
I think it's just because they haven't had any 100% confirmation of the way that they can do it. So you can't say we might do it this way, you might do it that way, when at the moment they probably still don't have any kind of solid idea of how they can.
But see, how do you come out and announce that a polo is definitely happening when that isn't organised yet?
Well, they've still got how long to organise it, I suppose.
But why announce it if you're not sure?
They've probably got different...
Because of the nature of the virus, I guess. It's changing so rapidly all the time what you can and can't do. There's no telling if they say, this is definitely what we'll be able to do by May, when odds are it'll probably be different what they can and can't do than it is
They've
now.
come out and said that these social distancing rules will nearly 100% be in place for at least 3 months.
They're probably... well, if that's a thing, then you can't have tackle football because you're breaching the social distancing. But if they were to put exemptions in, they've probably got two different models where if they do drop the level of severity of what we can and can't do, which is like crossing borders and whatnot, they've gone to the NRL and saying, look, by May we're looking to downplay the severity of what we're doing, and then the NRL is able to adjust what they want to do, travel to and from Brisbane, the likes, and then there's probably a second model saying if it does get worse or it stays the way it is, you are going to have isolation bubbles, or you can't, make your comp go ahead. And they're probably talking to the players and talking to them. There is a possibility where we're going to have to go away and do our own little thing. I honestly don't see it being any other way. I can't see them playing 12 more rounds when with all this going on. So unless they do get away and they stay isolated. So
that's what I mean. They've probably got a few plans in place and roll with the punches of what they can and can't do kind of as it comes. Like I think what they mean by what they came out with today is that May 28th football will absolutely come back, but they'd have a few contingencies of how they can do that depending on what the government will allow them to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The New South Wales government's come out and said that it's a great idea for the NRL to come back. It'll improve, society's morale, have something to look forward to on a weekend. So the New South Wales government's all for it, which is good. I personally haven't heard what the Queensland, Victorian and New Zealand governments have said, but one would think that they would sort of be on the same page and have talked about it to the New South Wales government and the possibility of this going ahead. So
yeah, well,
I don't know.
Look, at the end of the day, ultimately, getting off sort of topic for like football talk at the moment, safety is just the most paramount thing at the moment, and I think that's the main thing that they should be looking at. Yes, it's going to be great to have this morale boost, but at the end of the day, the bubble idea is probably the safest one. Like, there's still definitely ways that there could be infections added into that community, and it would be a hive for breeding and transmitting between players, but regardless, if tackle football happens, that's going to be a risk, and I think that having this bubble society is probably the easiest way to mitigate those, though.
I really think it's the only way they can do it. I know they probably don't want to do it, but I think it's the only way it's going to work. Because as soon as one of them gets it, it's all she wrote. So.
Oh, what if they just went with a simulated season on Rugby League Live 4, which obviously people have been flocking to watch on the internet. I think those started off as quick as they came. Are they even doing those anymore?
Yes, they are. I will give it to people.
Oh, no.
People are genuinely watching it, and I've seen comments about the game
I'm
People
guilty.
have-
I've been watching it.
Oh my lord, man, what's it been like?
Oh, the Roosters are coming back. we're 2-2 now. Round 5, here we
no.
come.
I can't believe it. I thought that would flop for sure. I've played that game. That game it's far from anything close
It's far
to
from Rugby League 2, the World Cup edition.
Where your 5'8" takes a 5-second pause before he puts a kick up.
Yeah.
And the players pass it to Moses, who has it out the back. And he's away.
Moses.
What a try.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't believe people are still watching those. They actually kept them up.
Where's
That's
credit's
crazy.
due? Well
I
done to
feel-
those who have committed.
I feel
How's Para going?
I honestly don't. I'll check for you. Hang on.
All right. check
That's the
Sharks
next
as well.
episode. Callan's just going to go through it and we're going to drill him about this season on Rugby League Live 4.
Does that include fantasy stats? You reckon quietly NRL fantasy is just calculating the stats? I haven't checked my app since this shut down,
No.
so the comp could still be on.
They even did a State of Origin one, boys.
How does it work though? There's been forward scoring bulk tries and things. I think there's
And there
just
was,
no
like-
method to the madness.
All right, here we go. We got the ladder. Panthers
Oh,
are on top.
Oh,
Knights are coming second. Parrots coming third. You did drop a game though. You got a 4 and against a 46.
Yeah, you idiot.
Where are the Sharks coming? You're coming 14th. You're only one a game. Roosters are in the top 8.
Oh,
We've got a
nice.
4 and against of +5.
Where is
so-
Storm?
Storm 4th. They've dropped a
Okay.
game.
Okay. I was going to
The biggest surprise here is probably Tigers 6. I don't know.
Oh,
Knights
shit.
2nd. Yeah.
Where are the Titans?
Oh, they haven't won a game.
Oh, good. So it is true to life.
uh,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
no.
That's pretty funny.
It's cool. Yeah.
I thought most, I guess, critiquing bit of that is the fact that they genuinely had injury concerns and things of the sort. Like, they've been referencing the injuries in the game to actual physios and giving them time frames and replacing players if they're injured. I think that's just next level stuff, guys. Like, well done.
Players on
Kudos.
judiciary.
Yeah.
I'm also pretty sure, so this game came out in 2017, I think, and I think if you buy the game and play it now, all of the kits, like the jerseys, the player lists for every team are as they were in 2017. I don't think they update with the years as the new ones.
No,
come
they're
out.
updated.
No, I
But-
think he creates
I
his
think
players.
someone's
Isn't
downloaded
he?
the custom one because you can download custom lists. So I was going to say kudos to whoever put in all the new jerseys, made all the new players and everything from the 2017 ones. That is an unreal effort.
Doesn't matter what it is, be it games or sport, there's always that one bloke who takes it too far.
Yeah, I think he's been sitting in
Is
a
it us?
basement for the last 7 months without sleeping or eating, just fucking
I don't know.
putting Mike Acevo in the game.
We're pretty close to being those kind of guys, though. Like, we don't just like the sport. We decided we'd fucking make a
that's true.
podcast and let people listen to it. Like,
Took
it
I
too
put probably
far.
twice as much time into my fantasy team as this fucking podcast and YouTube channel. So
this is how you cope.
yeah, that's it. But we should probably move on to the last thing we're going to talk about now, boys, just before we wrap up. Channel 9, they've come out, I'm sure you've seen the articles talking about how unhappy they are with the NRL's money management. So they've been talking about how hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested over the course of the NRL lifetime, including a $50 million loan to bail them out for club payments in the last couple of years. They feel hard done by with a reduced season, and Nine and Fox have not paid their NRL quarterly instalment due to the lack of games. They've especially been targeting Todd Greenberg about the whole thing, talking about how he's a huge part of the reason of the money mismanagement that's been going on with the NRL, which I think is fair. It's pretty obvious that they've had a huge money mismanagement thing, but do you think maybe Channel 9 are going about this the wrong way with airing their kind of dirty laundry?
It's yes and no. Like, more for no on my side of things, simply because it's kind of like a negative thing that can easily be done behind closed doors. Like, announcing it and having all that news be let out only really creates negative things towards Channel 9 and the NRL. Like, there's always going to be losers regardless of what side you take. But Channel 9 have a point. Like, they should have a sport that can manage their money and have funds that are in reserve for things like that, and not have to bail it out when they're just broadcasting it. Fair enough, they haven't played the quarterly installment because there's only been 2 games played. Weird that they feel hard done by, that the season's reduced considering the circumstances. Like, are you not affected by this whole issue at the moment?
I think, I should have probably clarified. I think what they feel hard done by there is the NRL wants the same amount of money, but it's a reduced season. Yeah. Sorry, I probably should have clarified that.
Yes, good idea. I didn't read the article, obviously.
That's quite important. Yeah.
Big note, by the way, also.
I think if I was Channel 9, I'd be upset because I think the TV deals for the AFL and the NRL were about on par. I know which one I'd rather have financially. As a fan, I know which one I'd rather have. But if I was worrying about finances only, it would have to be the AFL because I think that as a product on TV would gain more money and has been managed better financially.
Because they had that money put aside for this issue.
I think Channel 9's... is this a plea for them to get more games in this limited season so they could say, oh, look, we want Saturday night games as well? Maybe that's their ultimate plan. But if it is a plan for them to ultimately get out of their contract, then what are they going to show as far as sport? They drop the cricket. They're just going to fucking show tennis. Is that...
I don't think they want to get out of their contract. I think it's the first thing you said. I think they want more games throughout this season.
Which I don't mind. That's probably not a bad idea. But then Fox on the other side of it's probably going to be like, well, as a flip side of that, we probably want State of Origin then.
Yeah, well, that's
to show live.
Fox is
I think that's a fair trade-off. If to keep everybody happy, why doesn't Fox get State of Origin live and then Channel 9 can get Saturday night games?
It'll be hard.
100%.
Like, I assume Channel 9 have some rights to the Origin. Fuck, it'd be hard for them to give that up because that's probably one of their biggest draws of the year.
I don't know, but NRL needs to give me a call. I can fix this for them.
It's... Yeah, I don't know. I'm all for more free-to-air games. Like, obviously, Channel 9 don't invest any extra money. The games that they're missing out of from those few rounds, they get some Saturday games or something, and then more people can watch the footy. It boosts morale as well. I think that's absolutely fair. But at the same time, I don't think they need to go out and publicly attack the NRL to achieve it. I'm sure that's something you can just negotiate anyway, especially airing out how much money you've given them, especially with that $50 million loan in the last couple of years because the NRL couldn't pay their clubs the money that they were due. Like, that's not something I'd come out with. That's, I don't know, keep that behind closed doors kind of thing. It's,
especially with all the things that are going on at the moment. It's just extra shit that, like, it's just adding negativity on negativity, I guess.
But they do really have a point with how awfully the NRL manage their money. I mean, when the whole thing came out that they were going to shut, it did come out, I think Fox Sports reported about how the NRL did have a big... a disaster fund set aside, millions of dollars set aside in case the game did have to shut down for a period, but instead they decided to spend that on expanding their media. So, so that left the NRL with no money for this kind of situation. Like, the NRL clearly mismanaged their money. Maybe them airing this out publicly will flip a switch. They'll start to be better with it.
Hopefully, instead of just asking the government for money like they've been trying to.
Yeah. And in saying that, if they spend it on their media, they're fucking absolute shit. Constantly crashing.
Just like in the advertising and everything.
I don't know. Poor NRL. They just need somebody in there who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
No, we hire ex-players with not much experience
who have definitely have.
Wayne Pearson
there needs to be an investigation.
Who don't have CTE at all.
Yeah, that's it. Nah, I think maybe they do need some NASA higher ups to come in and see what they can do.
Someone who's run like at least a small coffee shop before. Somewhere in Sydney, just some basic things. Like, stop worrying about revamping the rules for the NRL. You know, just make sure you can pay everyone if something like this happens.
Yeah, like it does make me sad sometimes as a big rugby league fan to look at the AFL, how well that game is managed, the stature of the game. It just looks like nearly a perfect organisation, especially in an Australian context, and the NRL is just so far from that. It's
stark contrast.
They definitely have room to be better. Why don't they start hiring people from the AFL? Just poach them. Like,
just hire someone that is gonna, look at this objectively. Be like, I guess it's easy for us to talk about from the outside looking in, but like, God, it just can't be that hard.
I think the best thing they need to do is actually just probably bring in another Brisbane team. Find ways to get more money by bringing in more interest for the game. I guess like it is pretty stagnant at the moment.
We did what the
I don't
rugby
know, like-
union did, and ruin our comp by making it conference so no one can watch any games except for when it's 5 a.m. Add
no-
Japan,
an international
add
conference.
Argentina, and we'll get into it. It's a foolproof plan that has not gone and negatively impacted that game at all.
Australian rugby
Super
union's a
shit.
joke, but that's a different story.
Yeah, true. We're not. The NRL isn't on that level just yet. I
The
guess.
worst way to say this at the moment, who looked at Raylene Castles when she was at the Bulldogs and went, "That's a good idea. We'll hire her." She really helped.
And then there goes all our rugby league fans.
And
They have flicked us off because we're starting to talk about rugby union.
I don't want to watch that shit.
Nah, but like in all seriousness, though.
I guess
like,
on a
it's,
different note before we round her out, kind of sucks that I guess the women's NRL is dead now. Surely,
Yeah, I don't know if it can come
I don't think
back.
it's coming
no.
back.
Like it was kind of on its up, and like watching them in the nines was actually relatively enjoyable. Like they were.
It doesn't mean they won't reboot it next year.
They could reboot it, but I think the
But
professional,
the money
like,
thing,
it, like
they're going to be
the-
trying to. Yeah, the money thing, like they're going to be trying to rebuild their clubs. Like they're not going to be like, "Hey, here,
They were
have
running
this
out-
money."
the teams that were doing it, the Roosters, the St. George Dragons, Warriors, and
Broncos.
the Broncos were all running at a loss to do it. I think they were just doing it to promote their clubs.
Mhm.
I was saying, look at us, we're doing equality, and good on them. But I don't think, in saying that they were the strongest clubs, maybe not so the Warriors, but I think those other three are pretty strong in terms of finances compared to the other clubs. So they probably could do it, but as for expansion of it all, I don't think we're going to see, I guess, a Penrith women's team anytime soon,
No.
or a Manly women's team anytime soon. And to make it more professional, I don't think it's going to get more professional anytime soon. Like getting the players the money that they deserve.
Nah, it's easily sorted. Every team's already got their cheerleaders there at the grounds every game. Just chuck a jersey on them and make them play
no.
beforehand.
You can't say that.
Oh, you are not allowed.
No, obviously you want the proper players actually having a bout, and it did seem to be on the up. I'd like to see it go strong again. I don't think those players were getting paid that much. I don't think that competition was costing much money to run.
I think they.
I feel like they'll probably repeat.
I think they were definitely all running at a deficit though.
Yeah, they were.
sure.
They were running it. Yeah.
And in
Yeah,
a time
it was
after
definitely-
this, I just can't see clubs going, we can deal with this deficit with how things are going. Unless the beneficiaries for each club come out and say, yes, we are going to make sure this keeps running. We're going to put funding in specifically for this. I don't think it will come out otherwise.
The clubs haven't said anything yet. So, and with the league restarting, did the clubs really lose that much? I guess the clubs that run more on their leagues clubs, like your Penrith Panthers, your Parramatta Eels. I think the Parramatta Eels have a lot of investments elsewhere. I'm not too sure about that.
No, they're pretty well off.
Yeah, so teams like that will be okay, but like the Penrith Panthers, the West Tigers, the ones that live and breathe their local leagues club, with all these social distancings, they're going to really struggle.
Yeah.
But in saying that, they weren't the ones doing the women's football, so
No.
I don't think the Roosters are heavily involved with their leagues club. I could be wrong. Broncos, not so much. I think they have investments elsewhere, and they're still going to get revenue that way.
Mm-hmm.
So with this time and the league going ahead again, I don't think they're going to really lose as much as what they first thought they were going to lose. So
A lot of clubs did, unfortunately, because they have to lay off like 90% of their staff, either without pay or with heavily cut paychecks. So I think they lost a lot less money that way too. I just hope that they'll have the means to rehire them all at the salary they were at once it all kicks back into gear. But like, a lot of coaches and stuff like that either took leave without pay or stood down with the guarantee they'd have a job back. Like Brad Arthur did, I know, with Para, effectively quit his job until the NRL's back, they'll rehire him kind of thing. So no money until then to pay him. And yeah, I think a lot of clubs are under similar circumstances.
Here's a quick little point I want to bring up just before we go. With the whole coronavirus being obviously a worldwide pandemic, you've got the Super League, you've got Rugby Union, Australia and New Zealand. They're not going ahead this year. There's a lot of talent around. Do you reckon the teams could fill the gap with a few? We're seeing Quade Cooper training with Tavita Pangai Jr. on his social media. Just throwing it out there. Could players like that find their way into NRL teams?
I'd love to see something like that happen. I know the NBA have gone through a few lockouts in their time as well, and every time they've done that, their players have been able to go and play for basketball teams in leagues around the world that are still playing just in the meantime and then come back to their NBA teams. I'd like to see Super League players be allowed to come into the NRL, maybe cover some injuries, some union players, stuff like that as well. I think that'd be fun to watch. Yeah,
James Maloney come home again. Players like
Sonny
that.
Bill in for the Bulldogs or the Roosters.
Let the union change their rules so if you play overseas, you can still play for the country you were born in. Maybe they'll do that too.
Let's not get back onto how much of a mess
It's so hard not to. Let's keep going off topic because it's really fun. How cool would a concept be where it's a rugby league, so like a Wallabies / a Kangaroos team, where the best players from both leagues played a game?
Yeah,
I think they were talking about doing
talked
that.
about that for the last 20 years and never done it.
Yeah, they sort of were before the coronavirus started. They were going to do it like 2 games on the same night, weren't they? Auckland Blues were going to play the Brumbies, and then the Raiders were going to play the Warriors all at Eden Park.
Yeah.
But because of this pandemic happening, the Raiders played the Warriors in the Gold Coast in round 2. But I think that was going to be the first time that they were sort of going to unify in the same stadium. Obviously 2 different games, but that's that's pretty cool that they were even considering that as an idea.
Every few years, you see the story pipe up where they're looking at a Wallabies versus Kangaroos game where you play it where one half... They've had 2 versions of it where one half of the field, depending on the half of the field that you're on, is played as union or league, or you split the game into the 2 halves. Like, so the first half of the game in terms of time is league, the second half is union, and they play against each other and stuff. They've talked about that every few years. And I think, you always hear people championing for it and stuff like that. Like players that might be involved or the people trying to organise it, but it's never actually come to fruition. I think it's something that I'd like to see.
Who would win, All Blacks or Kangaroos? Straight off the bat. You reckon All Blacks?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Wallabies or Kangaroos? Or
No. Wallabies will get pumped by the Kangaroos, but like obviously all our talent and all our younger kids, if they're good at football, they play rugby league. Unless they go to the more private schools, then they become rugby union players. That's sort of the way it's gone here. Whereas everybody in New Zealand looks like they just play rugby union, and then if you can't make it in rugby union, you go play rugby league.
Yep.
With all our talent being with the Kangaroos, and then all of New Zealand's talent going with the All Blacks, I reckon it'd be pretty cool to actually see that.
I think the All Blacks will win. They're still world beaters playing, on an international level against a lot of other huge rugby countries where union is their only code too.
Yeah.
And they still absolutely wipe the floor with them. So there's something about the All Blacks that just breed talent.
Look, definitely highly rate all the level of our NRL players. But I think that it's a much easier transition from union to league. Like, there's no real rules you have to worry about. Like, union, there's a lot more technicalities with, like, the whole ruck and your mauls and scrums and marks and all of the sort. I think the transition for a union player to league is easier. I know a lot of people will argue differently. Well, either way, I don't really mind which is the easiest. But personally, I think that change would be much easier for the union players.
I think that would depend on the player and their position, whether the transition
True.
is
Okay.
easier or
Backs
not.
are pretty universal.
Yeah.
Well, your props in union are definitely different than your props in league.
Yeah, props in union just don't work in league. they won't cut it.
And your
They're not.
hooker,
They wouldn't be fit enough. But
Yeah,
flankers.
hookers totally different. Halves are different. Like, yeah.
but speaking of that, sort of coming over to league, that I'm pronouncing his name right. Is it Artie Sevilla?
Yeah.
Sevilla.
Surveyor.
Yeah, he was looking at coming to the Roosters at the Storm if the opportunity permitted itself. He said he only wanted to go with a contender.
Yeah.
Where would he play? What position do you reckon he'd play?
Centre.
Centre?
Yeah.
So
What is he in Union?
He's
I
a
don't even remember
breakaway.
what he's in Union. Oh, right. Yeah. Breakaway, I reckon, might translate to centre.
yeah,
At
well,
least, I know what he looks like. At least the body shape and everything. He's not too big to give it a crack. And he's a pretty athletic dude, isn't
yeah,
he?
he's
You could probably chuck him in there.
he's pretty athletic for the position,
Yeah.
even in Union, because breakaway can go one or two ways. I'm guessing. I'm not the biggest Union fan.
Your breakaway doesn't have to be the biggest guy ever. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose in league a back rower is more of a specialty position, isn't it? Because they run in lines and whatnot, whereas a centre can sort of float out in the edge and just wait for the ball to come to him.
Also,
So yeah,
The biggest.
defensively, like flankers and breakaway, same thing, do a fair bit of defense and they're pretty good at it. Centre is always the hardest to defend, and I think straight away he slots into that pretty well.
yeah,
He'd be reading totally different lines and plays, but I think you get used to it. The bloke knows how to tackle. It'd take maybe a season or two for him to be fully efficient, but yeah, you could definitely learn it. Yeah.
he'd be making heaps more money in Union. I don't know why he'd want to leave.
Well, thank you for everyone who made it this far listening. There was a bit of banter, a few more sidetracks than we planned, but I think overall it was a pretty fun conversation. And if you want to hear more, you can always follow us on Twitter at therugbyleaguebunker, and you can also follow us on YouTube for a few more videos that'll be popping up before the season reboots again, which is at the Rugby League Bunker on YouTube as well. I'll be posting a few up there. And we'll definitely be back with more podcasts to fill your ears quite soon. I've been Sam with Caylon and Ben, and until next time, at least look forward to your football.